And they literally had race and gender as one of the primary quota systems of who they would hire, meaning they were telling their managers to be discriminatory, to actually engage in hiring practices that discriminate against certain races and genders so they would meet their bonus quotas. Executive bonuses are tied to this, just like it was at many other Fortune 500 companies.
Renegade Online.
Disney defies a Trump order on DEI in an SEC filing, admits to tying bonuses to race and sex-based factors, appears to list diversity as a skill.
Did you notice, Valiant? They were not as eager this year to get that statement out there for lots of eyeballs. They released the Iger portion of it, but it was kind of hard to find this year. I can't imagine why.
Well, I don't know if when Jonas and I were looking the other day, because he brought it to my attention, he's like, I found it when they filed it with the SEC.
They hate when we do that, by the way. They just
which
really,
that's all
really gets under their skin.
Yeah, they really, I mean, that's all that they are legally required to do is file it with the SEC. I don't know if they had yet, at the time we looked at it, they had not yet posted it to their website. But they had made the SEC report, which then the media immediately picked up on. And I'm checking to see now. I'm going down to proxy statements 2024. No, they do. I don't see 2025s on their website yet. It may have been an oversight. They just did it Friday. We'll see if it's there tomorrow. Yeah. You know, the next business day. So, but I mean, it's already out there at this point. I don't know why they wouldn't put it on their website. At a time in which President Trump is slashing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and major corporations are following suit, Disney has doubled down on its commitment to diversity. How does Disney define it? By not being a white man. Now, I want to pause right there because we talked about this a year ago during the Nelson Peltz fight. We talked about this very thing with Disney, and Disney's not alone, but Disney is probably the shining city on a hill, to steal a Reagan phrase, when it comes to woke and DEI. Disney has championed the diversity of the board and their executives on the lead out, like the first page or two of every annual statement that they do. And this isn't their annual report. This is their 2025 proxy statement. The annual report will come later. That will come after the February 5th earnings call. And we talked about this, in fact, last year. We commented, it's like, look at how Disney counts diversity. They say that their board has a 30% or a 20% or a 40% diversity, meaning that some measure of diversity, you can't be white and you can't be male. If you're a white female, you get a diversity point. If you're a female of color, you get 20 diversity points, you know, that kind of thing. If you're a white male, if you're Bob Iger, in other words, you get no points. You're a zero, right? So again, if somebody can explain to me why what this has to do with Disney as an entertainment company, what the hell this has to do with Disney as being profitable, I'm not sure. But Disney seems to think that this has some type of effect on their bottom line.
Well, if you wanted to wage war, Valiant, with the executive branch for the next 4 years, this would be one way to do it. So let me ask you this.
Yep.
Seems to me that it's illegal to discriminate. Seems to me that under the Biden administration, there was no enforcement of that. In fact, there was encouragement to ignore that and just do the quotas and all of that sort of thing. Here, yep. Disney is tying your race to bonuses. Now, right. I got to say that if the Trump administration wants to make an example out of someone,
well, the DOJ should, because we've already, IBM has done this. And we'll get to that. I think that's a little bit further down in the article, but that specific part. But you know, IBM was caught on camera a year, 2 ago now. You had the CEO of IBM talking about how, you know, the senior management, the mid-level management, a lot of their bonuses were tied to the, you know, how many racially, ethnically diverse people that they hired. And they literally had race and gender as one of the primary quota systems of who they would hire, meaning they were telling their managers to be discriminatory, to actually engage in hiring practices that discriminate against certain races and genders so they would meet their bonus quotas. Now, of course, at the time that this video got made famous out there on X and everywhere else, like I said, this was probably a year or two ago now, look who was in office. Look who we got now. So to Pro's point, yeah, I think the DOJ, and we've already seen, there was some comment earlier this week. I'm going to go back and look and see if I have it saved, that one of the things that came out in that edict where Trump said, take out, we're removing DEI. One of the things that was stated in there was basically to go out and look at corporate America and find a few companies to make examples out of.
If I'm a Disney shareholder, man, I'm not feeling good about this. And the reason is,
I'm shitting a cat.
IBM. Yeah. Take IBM, okay? If you're IBM and that video comes out, you know what you say? You say, that's one employee. That's not our policy. That's a rogue statement. Blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
This is in a government filing. They filed this with the Trump government.
With the SEC. Yeah.
With the SEC, which is under Trump's purview now.
Sure. I mean, they're throwing it out there.
Yeah. If you're not a white man, pay them more. And by the way, the scuzziest part of all of this
I found
is
it.
apparently, and you clarify as we read through this, Valiant, apparently Bob Iger got paid more because of diversity. So Bob Iger, who is a married, heterosexual, white-skinned male with European ancestry primarily, he got paid more, not because he's diverse,
no,
but because he hired diversity and paid the people who are not white men like him more. Amazing.
That's it. And its recent filing with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, the Walt Disney Company showcased unwavering commitment to its controversial DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. While companies like Amazon, Walmart, Boeing, and Ford are moving away from such initiatives, Boeing was tired of watching their planes crash. Amidst a growing national scrutiny, Disney is doing the opposite, proudly incorporating DEI into its board selection process and executive bonuses. Now, again, I want to stipulate, I honestly don't give a damn so much about the board. The board ultimately, hey, look, the board gets voted on by the shareholders. Now, yes, largely influenced by the biggies, right? The BlackRock, the Vanguard, the State Street, the American funds, T. Rowe Prices. We can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, right? But there is a vote. There is a vote for those, okay? The second part of this is what's problematic, is the executive bonuses. You're literally tying race-based, gender-based discriminatory hiring practices, which many would point out and argue that is very much against federal law to do. Executive bonuses are tied to this, just like it was at many other Fortune 500 companies. So, and this was what's interesting about that. You create this dynamic of forces of nature, meaning that you've incentivized executives acting on behalf of the company, by the directive of the company, to get paid more money to quite literally put the company into legal jeopardy. Legal jeopardy for which those executives honestly will face little to no liability personally. The company will be the one eating it. It is the most bizarre, crazy, stupid thing that I think I've ever seen or ever have considered when it comes to this widespread brain cancer, the woke mind virus that has infested the Fortune 500. But let's talk about kind of what some of this is. Strikingly, Disney made no public announcement or press release accompanying the filing this year, which in some respects may not surprise me so much because there's no Nelson Peltz running them down this time. Although they filed it with the SEC, they did everything that they were legally required to do, which is fine. You don't have to make a press release about it. Raising eyebrows and questions about whether the company is trying to downplay its ongoing DEI focus. Now that, I think, is an interesting and worthy point of discussion, is why did they not, and they haven't even put it on their investor page. Like, I don't see it listed on the Disney investor page. Now, again, this just came out Friday, so benefit of the doubt, they filed it with the SEC on Friday. So hopefully tomorrow's the next business day, the next market day. Let's see if it winds up on the investors page by the close of business tomorrow. I would think it would be. So if it's not, then we can scratch our heads a little bit more. Disney's SEC filing emphasizes the diversity of its board of directors, boasting that 50% of its members are considered diverse, and I'm putting that in quotes, with 40% of them being non-male.
I've heard that's called woman.
Yes. Well, we don't want to misgender anybody. And 30% non-white. It's clear from this filing that Disney considers anyone who isn't a white man to be diverse. So CFO, CEO experience, 50%, I guess. Independents, 90%. Independent directors, 10-year, 6.5-year average. Diversity, and this is the big one. This is the only one that actually has to do with it. Diverse, gender, race and ethnicity. So they come up with this goofy metric just to show how great they are. And again, if somebody can explain to me, well, we want our shareholders, we want our board of directors to be more sexually and ethnically, skin color, more representative of our shareholders and our audience and our customers. This is what they try to get across. Again, if somebody can explain to me and show me in real numbers, because none of these DEI consultants have ever been able to do this. I'm sorry. This idea that, just throwing in people that look like other people magically makes you more money. And I love the examples that they've tried to use over the years by saying that, certain films or television projects, Shogun was a hugely diverse television show. It all took place in Japan. There was nothing phony about the diversity in the show, but we'll get there. However, the filing from Disney doesn't stop at celebrating the board's demographics. It shockingly lists diversity itself as a skill and a leadership qualification, grouping it with legitimate credentials like finance, cybersecurity, and strategic transformation. Under the section titled Corporate Governance and Board Matters, Disney explicitly states that board members are evaluated based on how well they reflect the diversity of the company's shareholders, employees, customers, guests, and the communities in which it operates. That's an actual quote from the proxy filing from Disney for 2025. In other words, identity politics, not necessarily professional accomplishment, play a significant role in determining who sits on the board. I want everybody to think back what we've covered real quick. The last couple of years. Just brought it up a minute ago. Nelson frickin' Peltz, right? What did Bob Iger always complain about with Nelson Peltz? Nelson has no experience. He doesn't know what he's doing in a theme park, movie, and television producing company. Nelson Peltz doesn't know anything about that stuff. Yet in the same breath, you got the Walt Disney Company telling us that it's so important that somebody be a woman or black or Hispanic. I don't know how to juxtapose that against the complaints with Nelson Peltz if you're telling me that you're bringing in, and you look at Disney's board, there's really nobody else in there from the entertainment industry.
Well, let me point to just how ludicrous this gets, Valiant, so everybody can understand just how stupid the game is. So let's say that you are a white man, okay? So you have European ancestry as your primary ancestry, okay? And you're at the Disney company and you're feeling pressure. You're feeling pressure because diversity is a skill. You're also feeling pressure because Bob Iger makes more money in this crazy scheme they have. He makes more money by you being more diverse. And well, you just can't fix that, can you? Oh, but there's the rub. You can, my friends. If you are a white male who is holding back your company by virtue of the color of your skin and your ancestry that you cannot fix because of the way you were born, well, there's a way out of it. Just declare yourself demisexual. And what is demisexual? Well, let me read it to you, folks. Experiencing sexual feelings and attraction only after developing a close emotional relationship and not on the basis of first impressions. So as long as you call yourself demisexual, which means that you're heterosexual and that you gather feelings for someone after you've known them for long enough to build an intimate relationship, you become part of the alphabet crowd, the LGBTQIA+, and in that plus is the D that stands for demisexual, and that is your out. You too can achieve diversity through semantic games at Disney.
That's just it. It's a big joke to run up numbers that mean nothing. It's about as worthless as an ESG score, unless of course you're trying to borrow money from the people who actually want you to have an ESG score. You can shave a couple of basis points off that big corporate loan. But just so everybody can see, this is actually from the document that Disney filed, so you can see exactly what we're talking about. Skills and experience, and at the top are all the names of the Walt Disney Company current members of the board of directors. And you can see here, skills and experience. Skills and experience. Brand stewardship, corporate responsibility. And every person on that list has little circles, things circled next to their name if they hit the criteria of this type of skill or experience. Corporate responsibility, DTC expertise, executive management, that's direct to consumer, executive management, finance and accounting, global business ops, media and entertainment. Isn't it amazing? There's not a single person on the whole damn board.
Huh. Darn
But I mean, take Iger out because he's the CEO. Sorry, we got Everson and Derek. That's got some media and entertainment experience there. Strategic transformation, risk management, succession planning, technology and innovation, diversity.
Valiant, this almost sounds like the California government. This almost sounds like the Los Angeles management teams.
The difference is on that one, though, the only box that Karen Bass could check on this whole page is diversity. That's it.
True that.
That's all she's got. So here's the point, is that this is, it's kind of show you how ridiculous it's become. And this is exactly the problem. And I don't know how much longer corporate America is going to be able to actually kind of get away with this. But to what you were talking about earlier here, especially with Iger, this week, said Donald Trump, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. Trump said in the Capitol building after taking the oath of office. The Capitol One Arena, I think is what that was. Or maybe that was at the Capitol building. I don't remember. He did a speech at the Capitol One Arena and at the Capitol. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. Disney apparently doesn't agree. Bob Iger's bonus is tied to DEI performance. Perhaps the most troubling thing is that Disney's admission about DEI agendas being directly tied and impacting the bonuses of its most senior executives, including the big white guy himself, Bob Iger. Among the three other performance factors, or OPFs, used to calculate annual bonuses for named executive officers, Disney lists diversity and inclusion. This is given equal weighting to synergy, storytelling, and creativity, placing DEI on par with actual business performance metrics. Now, I can tell you right now, let me stop. We have just solved the problem at the Walt Disney Company. The very mere fact that both DEI and storytelling and creativity are of equal importance, and we can see the performance of both at Disney has been shite.
Breitbart is out there referencing this. Other articles out there are referencing that Park Place, because this is original investigative reporting going into the SEC filing and discovering, hey, wait a minute. Bob Iger has a system that pays him more if he gets enough hires and enough board representation, not based on merit, but based completely on things that people can't change about themselves, how they were born. It's insanity.
And here's the other thing, is that meanwhile, to show you how insane this is, the Walt Disney Company's stock price has basically bobbed up and down in the same range for the last several years. It's going nowhere. And as I covered earlier this week, following the Netflix earnings call, to talk about that in just a second, just real briefly as a tie-in to this, Netflix is now worth twice as much as Walt Disney, more than twice as much as Walt Disney, and all they have is streaming.
Right, on one revenue system. They're not multimodal like Disney is. Valiant, Disney is down 20% in the last 5 years. At the same time, that inflation is up to such a degree that Disney should have just floated up as a percentage along with inflation. Yet they're down 50%.
It's
Disney,
so far
by the way,
behind. Yeah.
Disney is down about 47% from their high. You the S&P 500 in the last 5 years is up more than 80%.
Yeah.
Disney is not, like, the veneer is done. Nobody is buying this anymore except for sycophants.
Yeah. That's basically what it boils down to. The filing also goes on to explain that OPF, Disney and Inclusion, is fostering a culture of respect, increasing diversity in executive ranks, creating entertainment that reflects a broad spectrum of identities and experience. Notably, the company highlights multicultural turnout for Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, which is hilarious to me because I'm like, okay, Deadpool and Wolverine, what real diversity was in that movie? People just went to go see it because they wanted to see Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds go kick ass as Deadpool and Wolverine. People went to go see Inside Out 2 because it was really popular with young girls who are now older teenage girls and into their 20s and college students, like my oldest daughter, who saw the original one when she was probably 9 or 10. And here's the other thing. Let's not forget, because this is what's so crazy about it. Pete Docter over there at Pixar, right? He had to remove a lot of the more controversial LGBTQ stuff from Inside Out 2.
I had to scrub it.
Yeah, they had to take out what was a homosexual relationship between the main character and one of the other characters, or heavily hinted at one. At least insofar as a number of rumors that we heard, which I believe are 100% true, considering Pixar's recent history.
Let me tell you, Valiant, the sad reason they're doing that, because I know these Disney weirdos better than they know themselves. Here's what's going on here. Inside Out 2 stars a little girl of European descent, and her mother and father of European descent, in other words, white. Deadpool and Wolverine stars Hugh Jackman and that other guy, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Reynolds, by the way, might be in some trouble coming up with this whole Amber Heard, I mean Blake Lively situation. Yeah. But for now, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are very popular, and they also happen to be pale-skinned. So, Valiant, I think what's happening here, I think the reason the company, Disney, is highlighting the multicultural turnout for those movies is because they have a white guilt associated with the movies. Now, I don't have that kind of guilt because I know that any star of any background can make it, because I don't believe that the American people are racist. But I think Disney believes they are, and I think that's why Disney is touting the multicultural response, because they don't want to say, oh, well, when we had these Caucasian leads, things worked out okay, but we're really ashamed of it.
Well, no, the biggest part of this is that you've got the DEI people over there, like the ones that run the DEI department. They're trying to take credit for things they had nothing to do with. They're trying to say, oh, well, look, this had some level of diversity in it. Like this was a show or a movie that didn't just have white guys in it. So we're going to take credit for that, saying that DEI works. That's the only reason you get around to something like Inside Out 2. Shogun, that's a joke. Not the show. The show was amazing, but to say that that Shogun is some type of great win for diversity, equity, and inclusion is laughably retarded. No, that's a story that's been out for a while. We have made historical films, fictionalized historical events in Hollywood now for forever. I mean, just saying that, oh, we made a movie that had a Japanese cast because it was set in frickin' Japan does not make it a DEI project. So, I mean, these people try to co-opt things that they had nothing to do with, which, by the way, Shogun was started at Fox, not Disney. Disney just acquired it for $72 billion. So
let me see if I get this straight, Valiant. You're telling me, according to this logic, you're telling me that Shogun, which is set in Japan and therefore has Japanese people, that's DEI. But if we did a show in Australia that was set in Australia with Australians, that would not be DEI because...
Not if they were all white.
Oh, because we're just anti... male European.
Yeah, it's just it's stupid to take credit for this kind of stuff. And again, this is what all these DEI consultancy firms and all these kind of people do. They say, or they try to glom onto things, successes that they had almost nothing to do with, if anything at all. It was things already in the ether, or things that people already would have enjoyed, or things that would have already happened naturally. But then they just say, well, look, anytime something happens with a black woman in it, we're taking credit for it. Anytime something happens with a Hispanic transgender lesbian, we're taking credit for it. Anytime something happens with an Asian person in it, Shogun, we'll take credit for it. Let me tell you who gets credit for Shogun. Hiroyuki Sanada, period. And the showrunner for it, what's his name? The guy that did Top Gun Maverick. That's it. And of course the rest of the cast. But a DEI department, piss off. Piss off, you're going to try to take credit for Shogun on that. And Deadpool and Wolverine as well. That's just ridiculous. These achievements might be spun as DEI wins. Critics could argue they're more about pandering to progressive social trends. We're still tying executive bonuses to DEI goals incentivizes prioritizing political narratives over financial performance, leaving shareholders to foot the bill if these efforts fail to resonate. Most of them have. They don't want to talk about all the DEI failures, all the shows that really were the DEI department, right? They don't want to talk about all the shows that they were injecting in the gay and lesbian and transgender stuff for kids shows, right? That they just recently had to remove again at Pixar. They don't want to talk about the other shows where they tried to swap this or switch that or gender switch and all this stuff in Marvel, and how big a failure that phases 4 and 5 from Marvel Studios were from 2021, starting with Shang-Chi all the way up until, I guess, I don't even know if we're still in it or now, or in it or still or not, but all the way up until Deadpool and Wolverine. All those things largely were bombs. They spent so much money on them. They tried to take male characters and switch them out with women characters. They lost over half their audience every time they did it. They lost billions of dollars on phases 4 and 5. The audiences just walked away and nobody wanted to go see it anymore, especially when you factor in massive movie ticket price inflation. DEI has a track record of absolute ridiculous failure. Even Black Panther, they broke. They had something going with Black Panther, but then they decided, well, Chadwick Boseman died. Let's put a chick in it and make it lame. And they did. And they lost 60% of the audience plus because the boys didn't even want to see it anymore.
Well, it's going to go great this year, though, Valiant. I mean, we've got Captain America: Brave New World. That's going to go well.
Yeah, let's see how well the DEI, because the DEI department's going to want to take credit for that one. I mean,
Snow White, Silver Surfette. It's going to go well. It's going to go great.
It's so great, so great. Interestingly, Disney chose not to release it on the one. I can't help but wonder if this silence is an attempt to avoid drawing attention to policies that are increasingly controversial, with the Trump administration cracking down on DEI initiatives and public sentiment shifting against corporate wokeness. Disney's decision to hide its filing in plain sight may be a tactical move.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.